todos. I am so glad to be here. Mira cuánta gente ha venido a apoyar. Muchísimas gracias, muchísimas gracias. Se siente aquí en el corazón el apoyo, el calor, y muchas gracias por brindarme su confianza de estar aquí con ustedes. Thank you very much. I can feel the warmth and the support here in helping me achieve what we all want to do, and that is get representation in Congress. Muchas gracias. And Congresswoman Woolsey, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I've been called worse things than Fernando, so I'll take Fernando any day. I also want to thank Hernandez for putting this event together, helping put this event. I know he had a lot of help from the community in putting it together, and I want to thank him very much for doing so. Our host, el gran señor Reinaldo Robledo from Robledo Winery. Thank you very much for hosting us and having us here. Also want to thank in absentia, soon-to-be congressman and hopefully colleague of mine, Jared Hoffman. Our two MCs, Supervisor Efrain Carrillo and Leon Garcia, thank you very much. Supervisor David Rabbit, State Assembly candidate Mark Levine, City Councilman John Sawyer, thank you John for your support, Councilman Susan Guerin, and Councilwoman Gabe Kearney. All thank you very much, and if I miss anyone that are elected officials, I apologize in advance, but thank you very much for being here. Most of all though, las gracias las quiero dar a ustedes por estar aquí. I know you guys have a lot better things to do on a Friday afternoon than come and listen to a wannabe politician. I say wannabe porque soy novato, I'm new at this, but we are going to be successful. We're running in the 10th Congressional District in the Centro Valle de California. The cities, let me tell you a little bit about my district. It's the new 10th Congressional District, South San Joaquin Valley County, and all of Stanislaus County. So if you heard of the cities of Tracy, if you heard of Manteca, if you heard of Escalon, you heard of Ripon, if you heard of Salida, Modesto, Ceres, Turlock, Oakdale, Riverbank, and Patterson and Newman, those are all the cities the 10th Congressional District will represent. And so I am running there, and the district is about 42% registered Democrat, 39% registered Republican. And you may say, well, you've got the majority. No, because 21% declined to state tend to vote more Republican. So it's considered a Republican-leaning district. Pero las encuestas, the polls have us dead even. It's a toss-up, so we are doing very well. Now, mucha gente me pregunta, especially my wife, mucha gente me pregunta, me vio, and when I told her I wanted to run for Congress, me dijo, ¿estás loco? Are you crazy? Says, why would you want to go from a job that has 100% approval rating to a job that has 8% approval rating? Why would you want to do that to yourself? And to better explain that, I think you have to go back to how I grew up. Porque mis papás son de Michoacán, de La Piedad, Michoacán. And nosotros vivíamos, we lived a typical migrant farm working family lifestyle. Típico migrantes. We would spend 9 months in California siguiendo las cosechas, following the harvest, and then 3 months nos regresamos a México. Somos cuatro en mi familia, there's 4 of us in our family. And since I was born in the summer, guess where I was born? I was born here. Tengo un hermano y hermana. I have a brother and sister that were born in December. Guess where they were born? Allá en La Piedad. So it was just the luck of the draw. And our lifestyle was typical. Our lifestyle was typical in the sense that we would seguíamos las cosechas throughout San Joaquin Valley, and then we would go back home. So we typically would go to 3 or 4 school districts at a time throughout the year, and then we would go and take 3 months worth of homework back to La Piedad, and then stay there 3 months, and then the whole process repeated itself. And that was our life. It wasn't until the 2nd grade, segundo grado, that my dad one day woke up and he said, "Mijos, nos vamos a México la próxima semana, agarren sus tareas, your 3 months worth of homework from your teachers." I'm the youngest of 4, so I go running to my 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. Young. And she was a real, about 5 years out of college, young, pretty Chinese American teacher. And I say young and pretty because that was my first crush. I was in 2nd grade. And she was tall. Well, tall relative to a 2nd grader, porque ahora la veo y pobrecita está bien chaparrita. But she was tall back then. And so I go running to Mrs. Young, and I told Mrs. Young, we're going to Mexico next week. Can you give us 3 months worth of homework? And she kind of looked at me, and she says, "You know what? You tell your parents that I'm going to your house. Tonight." Entonces voy corriendo con el chisme, so I go running home to tell my parents, right? Les digo, viene la maestra. You get 2 different reactions from your parents, ¿verdad? Mi papá era bien serio, bien especial. I would ask, I told him Mrs. Young is coming. First thing he starts doing is se empieza a quitar el cinto. He says, "Hey, you must have done something wrong. Let me whip the boy now and then ask questions later." And so I'm sort of backing away. Finally convinced him that I didn't do anything bad. It was related to Mexico, and so he says, "Más te vale, porque si no te va limpio, ¿verdad?" And then I tell my mom, typical Latina, right? You know, she gets that Macaulay Culkin Home Alone look. You know, va a venir la maestra, hay que barrer, hay que trapear, let's make tortillas, let's put away the dishes that are chipped and ripped and put out the new dishes, right? Así es la familia Latina, no? And I remember that day she came, we had a good meal. We even had meat on the table. You know, I said, we were there eating, and I at one quiet moment I told Mrs. Young, I said, "Mrs. Young," and she says, "Yes, Jose?" I told her, "You ought to come over more often." I put 2 and 2 together, right? You know, there's a lady I liked, and then we were eating good, so I figured, hope she comes more often. Everybody laughed, except mi papá. He always gave me that look, like, you guys ever had that look when hacen una travesura, you do something bad and they can't hit you because there's company? That was the look I got. Anyway, Mrs. Young came, and we ate, and then we finally sat down in the living room, and I remember this conversation quite vividly because I translated for my parents. Yo fui el intérprete. And Mrs. Young used an analogy that was very useful to my parents. She said, "Imagine your 4 kids as trees. ¿Qué pasa si los siguen trasplantando? They're never going to grow big, nunca va a agarrar raíz y no van a crecer grandes y fuertes." She said, "Se tienen que quedar en un lugar. You have to stay in one place so your kids can grow roots and grow big and strong and get a good education." And that's when we started making Stockton, California our home. That's when we started, our education started to get traction. So then you ask yourself, well then that's fine, but how did you become an astronaut?